gratitude. Good afternoon. I guess things are always a little bit more hectic on opening day, but we did want to get right to business. This afternoon's agenda deals with the Hawaii Council on Mayors as well as testimony from each of the mayors individually. So why don't we start with the testimony from the Hawaii Council on Mayors. William P. Kenoi. For the Senate members, it's the one under the HCOM legislative package 214, I assume, but.
Aloha. Thank you, Chair Ige, Chair Luke, and distinguished members of both the Senate Ways and Means Committee, as well as the House Finance Committee members. It is an honor and privilege to stand before all of you on my 6th legislative session as mayor. And I would like to sincerely convey to all of you our appreciation and gratitude to have gone through probably some of the most challenging economic times that the state and the counties have ever faced in decades, and to overcome those significant and substantial economic challenges through cooperation, through collaboration, and through collective effort, and to have our communities a healthy, safe place for our families to call home, that our children are growing up with hope and opportunity and a belief and value in their dreams, that we continue to live in a special place we are all proud to call home. I want to say thank you very much. On behalf of the Hawaii Council of Mayors, my colleagues, Mayor Bernard Cavallo from Kauai, Mayor Alan Arakawa from the counties of Maui, representing the islands of Molokai, Lanai, and Maui, and Mayor Kirk Codwell from the city and county of Honolulu. We collectively represent the Hawaii Council of Mayors, and we appear before you today to respectfully request consideration for a couple simple bills, and also to put forward some of the issues and initiatives, requests for programs and services that are important, not just to our respective counties and constituents, but to the state of Hawaii as well. The Hawaii Council of Mayors meet regularly, and we try to work collectively to solve issues that impact all of our municipalities. And we appear before all of you recognizing and cognizant of the fact that county constituents and county residents are state constituents and state residents. We both share representation and responsibility for the exact same group of people. And when we meet, we try to share lessons learned. We try to share opportunities to overcome obstacles, hurdles, and barriers. And then we try to simplify and talk about what we can collectively agree on, because certainly issues are before each of our counties that we handle differently or address differently. But a couple issues that we've collectively agreed upon and submit for your consideration are two pieces of legislation. One is to extension of the beach liability provisions that will sunset in June 30th of this year. We believe it's a mutually beneficial arrangement where the counties enjoy the same liability, immunities, and protections as the state of Hawaii. And it impacts areas or state parks. For example, on the island of Hawaii, it'd be a Puna State Park, of which the counties provide lifeguard services. We believe it's a positive arrangement that benefits both the state and county, and we'd like to see that legislation continue. The second is the ability or opportunity and flexibility to raise the general excise tax up to 1% in each of our counties. I know the state of Hawaii, the state legislature, both the Senate and House, has extended this opportunity to the counties. I'm not exactly sure, but might have been back in 2007 or 2005. And city and county took advantage of that opportunity, and the other counties respectfully declined. So we've been talking, and what we came to the conclusion was every year the counties come before the state legislature and make requests for additional sources of revenue, or to have additional tools in our toolbox to address difficult or challenging fiscal situations. For example, the counties of Hawaii, the only tool we have in our toolbox are property taxes. So we either raise property taxes or there's no other opportunities to increase revenue. And in challenging economic times, of course, the transient accommodation tax is the second largest source of revenue to the counties. We'd like to respectfully request the flexibility to raise the general excise tax up to 1%. Not that we would raise it, but that each county would have the ability, the opportunity to increase that property tax. Currently, the city and county has a 0.5% general excise tax that is dedicated specifically to rail or infrastructure projects. We've talked about whether we want to restrict it to that or leave it open for flexibility, and we'd respectfully request consideration that the general excise tax be not restricted, but be afforded to the counties up to 1%. We'd also like to say that we would respectfully want the general excise tax to be considered in addition to the transient accommodation tax and not in exchange for. The conjunctive and, not the disjunctive or. I just didn't learn that word. I wanted to bust them out. But idea being, otherwise it'd be a wash, and not to have addition through subtraction. Is that a fair representation, fellow mayors? We'll also be going to Washington, D.C. next week to the United States Conference of Mayors. Once a year, the mayors go to Washington, D.C. We'll all be going to the White House to see President Obama and to advocate for municipal issues at the federal level. So that being said, to the island of Hawaii. Now, on a county level, we've been before this body in years past, and we've made absolutely no requests because we understood that the challenges facing the state were as significant, if not greater, than challenges facing the county. And we didn't want to shift the burden that we had at the county level onto the state. So in years past, I've actually come with requests, and Mayor Cavallo had none, so I had to act like I had none either. That's it, no. But this year, what we would be requesting of this distinguished bodies, both the Senate and House, is to support state-funded projects and state initiatives on the island of Hawaii. In areas of transportation, the fastest growing area in the state of Hawaii is the district of Puna. I think more people are moving into that district than anywhere else in the state of Hawaii. And one two-lane highway connects that fast-growing area to the employment and educational area of Hilo. So the traffic congestion is tremendous, and it's a state highway, 130. We'd ask the legislature to consider supporting that. Civil defense sirens, I know the administration and the state legislature have made upgrading our civil defense warning and alert system a priority. On an island, for example, of Hawaii, which is 4,028 square miles. And some people have asked, well, how big is that exactly? Larger than the state of Rhode Island and Delaware, same size as the state of Connecticut. So an early warning detection system effectively operating and well-maintained siren systems is critically important. And the money being asked for an upgrade and maintenance of the civil defense siren system is something we'd be respectfully requesting to strengthen our public safety system. Around our children and youth, the Hawaii Juvenile Justice Working Group last month issued a very compelling report talking about the challenges of cost of incarcerating our adolescents or youth in upwards in excess of $199,000 per youth per year. And we believe with early intervention and diversion programs that provide an entire spectrum of services to provide our youth with options and alternatives to incarceration would go a long way to compassionately and effectively addressing our future leaders of tomorrow and the challenges they face today. Around higher education, we'd ask that any support that this legislature can give to the University of Hawaii and higher education in the county of Hawaii is greatly appreciated. And people have asked me in the past why the advocacy for higher education. And we say higher education is the great equalizer of our society. It gives every one of our kids, our students, our kamali'i on Hawaii Island a hope, dreams, and opportunity to better their lives of tomorrow. Because we know it's not where you start, but where you end up that matters. And higher education is an investment that benefits everyone. Also around healthcare, we know it's a national state issue, and it's also a local one as well. And we'd be respectfully requesting primary care physician support, the rural residency program. You know, we talk about having more physicians and increased recruitment, reimbursement, and retention. but studies have shown 80% of physicians, where they do the residency is where they usually practice. And if we can invest in rural residencies on Hawaii Island, we can have our physicians trained, live and work right here at home on Hawaii Island, which would tremendously increase the capacity and infrastructure and healthcare on Hawaii Island. And finally, I know my colleagues, my distinguished colleagues, who I'm all very proud to work with and serve with, and who I've learned so much these past few years from. I want to give them an opportunity. So lastly, we ask the state to continue their commitment and investment into Kona International Airport improvements. We believe it's the second gateway into Hawaii. We still need to work with U.S. Customs and Border to continue to provide federal infrastructure and support. But that second gateway into Hawaii provides a tremendous opportunity for growth on Hawaii Island, lends itself to support of our largest employment sector, which is the hospitality and visitor industry, and allows Hawaii Island to grow in a very meaningful and strategic way. So finally, thank you, all of you, for the hard work that all of you have done to take our state of Hawaii that was in incredibly challenging, turbulent economic times and put it on sound financial footing. It's because of your hard work and your leadership that we stand where we are today, and look forward to your continued partnership, working together, and we stand ready to assist any and all of you in any way we can. Thank you very much. Mahalo, and Happy New Year.
Okay, thank you. Members, questions for Mayor Kinoi?
Thank you very much. Mahalo, you guys.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions? We cool? Okay, thanks.
Well, I know you'll be around, so. Next, we have Kirk Caldwell, City and County of Honolulu.
Chair Ige, Chair Luke, members of the Finance Committee, members of Ways and Means Committee, I want to thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to come before you jointly, both the mayors and also the county councils for each of our islands. In some ways, this is historic because, as Mayor Kinoi mentioned, we, for the first time, both the mayors and the county councils have come together on two important issues that affect all of us. Yes, it's a county issue, but it also impacts everyone who lives in the state of Hawaii. And one is the beach liability issue, which is extremely important even for a more urban place like Oahu, because we provide lifeguards out in Yokohama Bay, 3 lifeguards, as Representative Jordan knows, all the way to Kaena Point. We don't want to see the sunset occur on June 30th, because now we have a liability that we don't want to welcome if we don't have to. And so we'd like to request that it not sunset and that we enjoy the same protections that the state of Hawaii does. The second one does deal with the GET. And as Mayor Kinoi mentioned, the City and County of Honolulu, due to the authority that was provided to all the counties back in 2005, elected to raise the GET tax by 0.5%, devoted specifically to our rail project. And this afternoon, we do have Dan Grabowskis here, who is the Executive Director of the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transit, along with Ivan Louis Kwan, who is the Chair of the Board. Because they're here, they realize how important this authority was to allow us to raise this 0.5%, which between now and the end of 2022 will raise about $3.7 billion, the local funding source to help build our rail project. The rest comes from the federal government, $1.55 billion. Is one of the last things that Senator Inouye did for our state before he passed away, and the full funding grant agreement was signed just within days of his death. A legacy project is going to change this place forever. And so we're not asking to, I as the mayor am not asking to raise another 0.5%, but I stand firmly with all the mayors in asking for the authority for a full percent, including for the City and County of Honolulu. In our case, I can see it being limited and requested to be limited just for a fixed rail mass transit, because this money can be used to make sure in perpetuity to help make sure we fund it fully without having to look at any other sources of funds, federal funds, and also to make sure that once the project is completed, we have money for operation and maintenance on an ongoing basis. And this is extremely important for our system and for any mass transit system. As you know, if we charge the full cost of ridership as if it was a private entity, no one would ride the system, would be too expensive. And so like any mass transit system around the country or the world, it is subsidized. And this is a way to make sure that the price remains affordable and we see even more people riding it. Our bus system right now has 220,000 people riding the bus every day. We are a mass transit community, and with rail, it's going to get better. And it's going to be an integrated system, and this in perpetuity aspect of our GET that the other counties are asking, because they're going to be taking a huge political hit. If, in fact, the county council and the mayor of whatever island decides they're going to go forward like Oahu did and vote to raise the GET tax between 0% and another 1%, there is a lot of political issues there. Once taken, they have to revisit it every couple of years because it sunsets, I believe isn't fair. So they're requesting something that's reasonable and fair, and we just ask that Oahu get the same extension to the tax already given to us, the authority. The other thing that I wanted to mention, given our experience at the City and County of Honolulu, and I was here at that time in 2005, we are looking to the State Department of Taxation to collect the tax. Otherwise, the City and County of Honolulu would have to set up its own taxing authority, would have to work with the state to figure out who pays GET, and then to collect its 0.5%. So we thought it'd be best the Department of Taxation did it. And sitting in rooms around this building, we were trying to figure out how much it would cost. The Department of Taxation could not tell us. And the agreement was that 10% would meet that need. And as you know, the law that was written says it's to be withheld to cover the cost of collection. We've seen in the experience since they've collected the tax that, in fact, the amount withheld, the 10%, is close, and if this past year will probably exceed the entire budget for the State Department of Taxation. Now, last year I know I came up here and talked about this issue, and questions were asked of the Director, Department of Taxation, how much does it cost to actually collect Oahu's 0.5%? No answer was provided, and we still to this day don't know what it is. And it may perhaps be very difficult, but I think it's not the entire budget for the Department of Taxation. And so in the legislation that we proposed, we set it at 2%. But I think we'd all be happy if we knew what the exact cost was to have that applied to this legislation for all counties working together. In our case, the 10% that's being withheld, we've estimated to be between 2007, when it was started to be collected, and the end of 2022 is about $400 million. And that money, if it was just the true cost, the rest would go towards our rail project, and we do need it. So I wanted to thank all of you. Those are the two things I wanted to talk about today. Extremely important, and I think also historic, that you see this coming together of the county councils and the mayors representing all the people of this great state. So thank you so much, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Okay, if we can move to Alan Arakawa, County of Maui, and I guess we'll take questions at the end.
Good afternoon, and
Afternoon.
thank you very much for having us here. Before I start, I'd like to ask all of the people from Maui to please stand. We have Council Member, Council Chair Gladys Baisa, Council Member Mike Victorino, Don Guzman, Mike White, and my Chief of Staff, Herman Andaya. Also, Mike Molina and Jack Yamaguchi, who fell ill, will be our lobbyists this year. I just wanted you to see the faces of some of our legislators. The Honorable David Ige, Chair, Honorable Michelle Kidani, Vice Chair, Honorable members of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, Honorable Sylvia Luke, Chair, Honorable Scott Nishimoto, Vice Chair, Honorable Aaron Ling Johansson, Vice Chair, and the members of the House Finance Committee. I thank you very much for this opportunity to testify before you. The first thing I wanted to say is that, in general, our society takes for granted a lot of the work that you do, and you really, truly do put in a lot of work and effort during these sessions. And I know that, many times you're sitting in meetings for long, long hours, and it's just a tireless job. So I just want to take this opportunity to do something that most people don't do, and that is just to thank you for all the hours that you're spending doing this work, because I know it's really tiresome, and it really is very, very time-consuming as well. So Thank you very
Thank
much. As Mayor of Maui County, I want to thank you for all the much-needed projects that either completed or moving forward in Maui County. You know, I've heard it said at the state legislature, Maui doesn't come and ask for a lot of things during this session. And I just wanted to explain a little bit that most of what we do is we work with the departments and we work with our legislators in between to be able to get the funding for a lot of the projects rather than to just make the appeals here, because it's more efficient that way and we can explain it in much more detail. However, I do think that it's important for all of you to realize that without your help, we wouldn't have had the opening of Pu'ukukui Elementary School, the Lahaina Bypass Phase 1 and 2, the improvements to Honopi'ilani Highway, which are ongoing, dedication of the Dan K. Inouye Allied Health Center, as well as the Science Building at the University of Hawaii, Maui College, funding for the new high school in Kihei, improvements to our airport, including the bypass and the transportation parking garages, and funding and improvements for renovations to the hospital of Maui County. Just to name some of the bigger projects that you've helped us with this past year. So we really, truly do depend on your help and help with the funding for a lot of these projects. Without your help, we couldn't get them done. On behalf of the people of Maui County, we want to especially thank our hardworking Maui delegation for all the work that you've done as well, and for the communications that we get, because without your help in the communication, we'd have a really tough time getting through these sessions. We want to recognize President Donna Mercado Kim, Senator Dave Ige, Representative Sylvia Luke, and also Speaker Joe Suki, who took the time to come to Maui to talk to us and to be able to work over some of the funding and the discussions on economics. And we really do appreciate that. And it was one of the first times we've ever had this opportunity, and we think it's something that we would really love to have happen more often. This kind of communication is really important for us so that we can talk to you and you can talk to us, and we can show you firsthand some of the things that are going on where otherwise it's just imaginary. You know, being able to see things really makes it real. We know that despite all of the things that we've been working on, you know, while things are getting better, we can't sit on our laurels. We're going to have to do a lot more work, and we have a lot more to do. Accordingly, I'd like to ask you to support the two bills that the Hawaii County of Mayors have put together as our package. It's been explained to you what they are. And I do want to explain, you know, one of the reasons that we're looking at the GET as well as the TAT. One of the challenges we have is that the funding levels are with just the TAT is not really dependable. Every year we come here and we have discussions about what's going to happen with the TAT, and it's been very difficult to work a budget pre-legislative session, not knowing what we're going to end up at the end of the legislative session. So we're hoping to try and stabilize the funding within the system that we have. So with the 1% GET and the TAT, you know, even if it's capped, it gives us a firm commitment on what we can budget and we can plan for. You know, a year-to-year planning system is, shall we say, not the best method to be able to do what we need to do. There are many major capital improvement projects that we need, our infrastructure. We have to be able to plan out 5, 10, 15, 20 years. In case of our roadways, 25 years in advance. And we have to try and budget consistently for it and try and figure out how we're going to be able to manipulate the funds. A reliable source of income will allow us to do more than year-to-year planning. And it's critical for us in our process to try and do consistent planning. The beach liability issue is one that, for those of you that were on county councils with me when we first got this passed, it's been decades in process, and we finally got it passed. To have it sunset now will really hurt us as counties. You know, to be able to be sued for a lot of things that even the state exempts itself for. Just doesn't make sense. We as municipal government need to be able to have the same kind of protection that the state and that you allow the state to have to be able to protect our communities. And again, as was pointed out, our counties are part of the state community. When you allow the counties to be sued, it's the same thing, affect the same people, the same constituents as you're protecting in the state as well. So I'd ask you to please remove the sunset, allow us to be able to keep the same kind of liability coverage that we have currently. It's the same as what the state has, no more, no less. If we do things that are incorrect, we can still be sued. But this protects us against a lot of the frivolous and the smaller types of lawsuits. I want to ask you, in addition to that, this year we were informed the governor is going to be sending down a request for additional positions for the Department of Agriculture inspections. Now, the other day, someone was talking to us and says if 2013 was the year of the shark, 2014 may be the year of the ant. As you know, it was recently confirmed on Maui and Oahu that we have an invasive stinging ant. And that little fire ant could become very, very detrimental to our communities. And what we're finding is that in a lot of the products that are being shipped to the island, we're having inadequate inspections. For us to be able to combat even a simple thing like the coqui frog, when it came in, it literally took us millions of dollars once it was spread. And unless we can do better with the inspections, we're going to have all kinds of problems dealing with these invasive species, and the costs to the counties become enormous. Just the little fire ant could literally cost us hundreds of millions of dollars if it really spreads out and becomes a problem with the tourists and with our local people. And the last thing we'd want to do is having our children go out to play and getting bitten with literally dozens and dozens of welts that last for 2 or 3 days, or have our pets being out in the yard and having them blinded because they've been bitten in the eyes. You know, this is something that's very real. Department of Ag has very real concerns about it, and so do we. So we're asking to please help us add positions so that we can get the kind of inspection that we need. It's not going to be the level that we need it, but at least it'll be an addition, it'll be helpful. And I'm asking that Maui County be allowed to have 2 such positions, one for Molokai and one for Maui Island. I also want to mention that I was informed that there is a proposal that's being pushed around that would allow us to be able to embargo products that are confirmed to be bringing in alien pests to our counties. In other words, we'd be able to stop the companies that are sending things like hapu to our island when we discover that there's a problem with it. Currently, we don't have that ability to do that. So we can still be getting infestations from the same company, and it just doesn't make sense for us not to be able to say, hey, we've got a problem, stop until we can rectify the problem so that we can control it and we can take care of it. So as this bill is working its way through, I ask you please support it, because we need to be able to protect our communities, and this is one way that would really help. I was also asked by state to support HB 849 relating to emergency management. As you know, the county mayors are responsible for all of the major emergencies that happen within our islands. This bill will allow us, will automatically give us that authority rather than having to go through and confirm it all the time. So please look at HB 849 and follow through with it. And we'd appreciate it if you pass this bill. Again, I want to, thank you for considering our requests. I want to thank you for all the funding that you have given us and for all the help that you have given us over the years. It's the cooperation between the state and the counties that make the communities what they are. And it's cooperation between the state and the counties, your legislation, our application that will allow us to have the best quality of life for our citizens. So in advance, I thank you for your help, and good luck for the session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Carvalho from Kauai.
Good afternoon and aloha.
Aloha.
I wanted to also recognize our team from Kauai. If everybody can please stand. You know, we all know that we surround ourselves with great people to help us move forward and make the decisions we all got to make for the people that we serve. So our Finance Director, Steve Hunt here, Managing Director, newly Managing Director right there, Nadine Nakamura, Communications Director, Beth Tokioka, County Attorney right there, El Castillo, and where's Cindy? And Cindy over there, a specialist on our staff. Of course, Jan Yukimura right there, Council Member. Of course, always trying to work very closely with our council, County Council, to get things moving in the direction that we feel would really help benefit all. So I want to make sure we understand that. So thank you for that opportunity. Chair Ige, members of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, Chair Luke, and members of the House Finance Committee, mahalo again for having us. On behalf of our fellow mayors, Mayor Kinoy, of course, Chair of our HCOM Committee, relayed our message, and we're consistent with that. We stand by that. We've gone over numerous discussions to see how we collectively as mayors can really stay connected and work closely with you. And very, very appreciative of the opportunity with many of you to continue building that relationship that is so important. Before I begin, I want to just focus on the word partnership. I mean, that's what it is, you guys. That's what I've learned. I continue to look at more, not only just the word, but making it mean something. And so knowing all the different challenges that we face on a daily basis as mayors, as leaders, all of us here in this room, we're just trying our very best to make the decisions we have to make. And hopefully we can depend on each other as we navigate through some of these challenged areas and look for the positive. And I'm hoping that through this delivery and the efforts that we're trying to put in together, that we can really come out with a positive outcome for the people that we serve. For Kauai, just in brief, starting off on a good note, visitors, arrivals are up, unemployment is down, single-family home and condo sales are up. I mean, just in brief, and looking at some of those numbers. However, in our fiscal year 2014 budget, we looked at how we would manage our budget and be fiscally responsible. We looked at the operational expenditures, of course, to this greatest degree for maintaining core services. We adjusted tax rates and fees. We try to look at being responsible and looking how we can really generate revenues internally and working closely within our community, working closely with our county council. We limited new initiatives and focusing on fixing and repairing our facilities. Those are big initiatives. We're not building anything, we're looking at how we can maintain our facilities and make that experience better for all the people that we serve. This past budget cycle, we a new approach where we did a cross-section analysis of the previous year's budget and really trying to come to a number, if you will, that we can work with and agree upon. Last spring, like I said, our discussions with our county council did result in tax and fee increases that generated an additional $12 million. And we looked at vehicle registration, fuel tax, bus fares, planning department fares. We try to be responsible that way, trying to understand that, hoping that the economy would get better and better and better. But obviously, we are still in challenged areas, and so I wanted to just share that with you, that we are trying our very best to meet the needs of our individual counties, but at the same time, trying to see how we can manage ourselves with outcomes that can benefit all. In terms of focusing on our facilities, we've created many different task force and opportunities to meet and talk to our community and really conduct inventories and surveys and just to get a better understanding fiscally what we need to do and where we need to go. So far, in our CIP project, 11.4 million projects through procurement already going through. We expect another increase of 21.5 million by the end of June. And my point is that we're trying our very best to tie in these projects and make these projects work. We need to get to the action part and make it work. And so I think with our overall approach in trying to do that, we're approaching that area where we can be as successful as we can. And yet there are still the challenges, like I said, particularly when it comes to fixed costs. And we all addressing our collective bargaining, which we're working really closely on with the different unions, trying to really manage that. Even after raising taxes, we need to look at all parts of how we manage ourselves. Then we get into the state partnerships. In my view, partnerships are the most valuable tool, like I mentioned earlier. And I wanted to highlight some of the very successful partnerships with the state. And everywhere we go, I mean, the more partnered projects we can do, the result is best for all of us. Last year, we were having challenges with our multi-agency emergency responses on state land, but we were able to regroup everything. Chair Ayla, all of our state and county representatives getting to the table and addressing some of the emergency responses on state lands, such as Kokee and Kalalau. So I'm very happy with the outcome of that. We were able to really help each other out by talking story, coming to the table, seeing how we can respond in a better way. When are we going to close the trails? When are we going to open the trails? How long is it going to be? Who is responsible? What kind of funding sources we need? So those discussions, that example and that model, I feel strongly is what we need to do collectively throughout the statewide. And I'm very happy with the outcome of that discussions. We continue to work with the state, of course, with the Hanalei Blackpot Beach area. Most recently, an effort spearheaded by the Rotary Club of Hanalei, again, a partnership with a community organization, working with state and county representatives, and supporting this amazing reconstruction of the Hanalei Pier canopy, which is featured in many movies throughout the world. And so this is another example of working together with our state counterparts and the community, in this particular case, to come up with something that we're very proud of. And then we continue to start the master planning process for that expanded park facility down on the North Shore. So we're working closely on that. Our ocean safety is vital importance of all, and we talked a little bit about that. But we're really trying our very best to keep our people safe and our beachgoers safe. So again, the tort liability legislative part in our bill, in our package, is very important. So in short, partnerships save money, stretch resources, build trust, strengthen relationships, and try to move forward in a direction that's going to help all of us out. We continue to look for ways to work with the state and counties together. So, which leads to our legislative requests. You've already received our 2014 County of Kauai legislative package, the tort liability we talked about. Some of Kauai's dangerous beaches, of course, and allows us to provide lifeguard services at state beaches such as KA. We feel strongly that we need to obviously continue that. Between 1970 and 2008, there were 8 drownings at KA. Since 2008, there have been 0 drownings. So that kinds of data and information is important, but it's a partnership and continued support for the people that we serve. Department of Ag pesticide regulation enforcement. The Department of Ag is doing its best that it can with the limited resources, so we support that effort by our governor to increase the budget of the Department of Agriculture and how we can collectively see who and how we can support each other in ways that can help this address this overall. In a capital improvement projects, there's 2 projects I wanted to talk briefly about. The first one, of course, and it's all in partnership. In the construction of transportation on Kauai, has boomed. Our transportation, our bus system has tripled on the amount. Our bus program, our ridership, our bus routes, all of it. And we are in partnership with Kauai Community College, getting more opportunities for weekend bus ridership and working with the schools and seeing how we can support Kauai Community College, like I said. So there's many partnership pieces happening there. So we're looking to the construction of 49. I said that every single bus stop on Kauai will have a bus shelter, period. And it's important for us to continue to look at that. Most of our bus shelters, of course, on the main highway. So in partnership with the state and county, looking at how we can continue to support that program. The other project is the communal hall facility, the Veterans Hanapepe Cemetery, Veterans Cemetery. So again, in our efforts to really keep that cemetery, that facility at the top-notch level, we're really seeking support there in those 2 particular projects. The GET we talked about overall is not about, it's about asking permission to have the ability, if we choose to, up to 1%. That's it on the GET. So for Kauai, there are looming massive investments, there's landfill, there's affordable housing, et cetera, but for today, I wanted to really stress the importance of, we've experienced it in our relationship and our discussions with many of you as we continue to really look forward to continuing the projects on our islands, our individual counties, and at the same time, what are the needs that you have that we can work together on to support each other. So thank you for the opportunity. On behalf of our Council, Hawaii Conference of Mayors, on behalf of HCOM, first time all of us getting together and trying to really collectively pull together at least in one or two areas and see how we can really manage ourselves for the outcome of the people that we serve. So mahalo for the time, and thank you so much.
Thank you,
God bless.
Mayor. Okay, members, any questions for any of the mayors? Senator Keith Agaran.
This question actually is for all the mayors, actually.
Okay.
I know that agriculture has always been considered important, especially to our rural areas and also the neighbor islands. And I know that Kauai and the Big Island, actually Kauai and the city have been working on important ag lands. What's the status of IAL designations by the counties, and whether or not you think that the IAL process is useful?
Senator Agaran, as a former farmer, one who's been brought up in agriculture, I have personally a lot of difficulty with the important ag land distinctions. Now, I understand that we do need to try and preserve ag land, but if you take a look at agriculture throughout the state of Hawaii, it's not the quality of the land that is the most critical as to the importance of production and the ability to produce. You know, you take the lava over in Kona, and they're raising some of the best coffee. You take the areas that were considered scrublands in Hana, and we're raising some of the best tropicals. You take areas that are on greenhouses, Kauai, you can take almost any place within the state, and you can find that you can raise different kinds of produce on it. What I think is more important than trying to designate the quality of the land is to try and isolate the areas where we're going to be able to say these areas are going to be preserved for agriculture long term and are not going to be allowed to turn into housing developments. And I think there's a practical application that needs to be looked at. Whether you have sufficient irrigation, water for the area, whether there's sufficient infrastructure for the particular type of crop you are, and whether the housing and the family units around that area are going to be complaining because of the dust, the noise, and the normal agricultural challenges. But just the designation of land and just saying, well, this is important because has allowed our communities, I believe, to be dissected by those that have large land holdings to be able to develop properties as they see convenient for them, rather than to have the planning process that should be taking place by our departments to say, this is where we want to grow the communities, this is where we want to preserve agricultural areas, but it's not necessarily by land quality.
Sure.
Okay, so I take it then that you don't believe that there's any mandate in the legislation then that the counties need to come up with ordinances by a certain date. And I think I'm a little concerned because there are people that are making the arguments now legally that any failure by the counties to act in this area could cause problems for agriculture and for other uses of lands within the different counties.
Sir, what I'm saying is not that. When you as legislatures pass a rule and a law, we're mandated to try and follow those rules and laws. What you asked originally was, what do I think of the specific law, which is very different from whether we're going to follow it or not. we're going through a planning process now where we're creating a general plan and we're creating our community plans, and we're going to try and incorporate the important ag lands into it. That doesn't necessarily mean that I think that the system that we're being required to use is the most efficient. But we're going to have to follow the rules. You create the laws, we have to follow those laws. So we're not going to be ignoring them.
All right, so are Maui and Kauai then, I mean, Kauai is, I think, has been working on it, and so has the city. But the Big Island and Maui, at this point, are late then, as I understand it.
For Kauai County, when we first got into office, we began the process. We've gone through, we formed our committees, we did the discussion pieces, so we're now reviewing the draft of the document, of the work that has been done to date. So we're happy that we're able to start the process. We're very concerned, obviously, about getting it done, and I look forward to the results of the draft study and copy that we have and currently working on right now.
Well, what about the Big Island? Do you need more time? Should we? Well, you were standing back there, and I thought you were getting lonely.
You might forget about me. No, our county planning department. But you're absolutely right, Senator, that we are late in finalizing and designated IALs, or important agricultural lands. Our county planning departments have been in a process of focusing on CDPs, or community development plans, that have been ongoing for Kona, South Kohala, North Kohala, Hamakua, Puna, and Ka'u. And those are very intensive, comprehensive, thorough, community-based planning efforts. So our limited planning department staff have been focused on that. But we've been aware and very cognizant of the fact that we have to make sure that we comply with a state mandate of designated important agricultural lands. We're proud to say that in the last couple years, we have created the largest agricultural park in the state of Hawaii, 1,734 acres in Kapolena in Hamakua. We've also purchased and protected more open space in the last few years. Just purchased actually 217 acres to protect O'oma from large-scale resort mixed-use development. So the County of Hawaii has not lost important agricultural lands, but you're right in recognizing that the County of Hawaii needs to pick it up and get done the designation of important agricultural lands. And I take full responsibility for that.
Just one last question.
Well, does the mayor from City and County of Honolulu want to respond to the question?
Well, does the mayor want to say something? Or?
I'll just emphasize, as part of the legislature when he passed important ag lands, strong supporter. And as mayor, we have begun the process. We have Dr. Po Lai, who is a professor of tropical agriculture from UH Manoa. He's on board. Department of Planning and Permitting have finished their first phase and their second phase of mapping important ag lands. I think it is critical to know A, B, C, and D lands on this island. It's interesting that so many people think of ag as a state issue, but I also believe it's a county issue and it's an Oahu issue. We have a lot of ag land here, 30,000 acres that are fallow. How do we get it back into ag again? So we are moving forward, and we'll work with the other counties in the legislature to continue the progress. Thanks.
So I guess the other question then is, if you were to be authorized to create another surcharge then on the GET, would that help you with having the resources to do the work then for IAL?
Absolutely. Creating additional revenue sources that allow us to comply with unfunded state mandates would certainly be facilitative and assistive in the counties meeting those commitments and obligations. So the short answer from the County of Hawaii would be yes.
And from Maui, I can say the same thing. Our planning department we are a little bit slow because we are going through our community and general plans. And the general plan process has taken much longer than it was supposed to because of all the community input, and it was extended, so it's been tying up a lot of our resources. But we most certainly would welcome any additional revenue stream to be able to put more personnel to this issue, and we will address it.
Okay. Representative Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and thank you for being all on the same sheet of music. I think the lyrics, the tune, everything fits together. I have two questions, one on the tax liability, and, well, let's say the beach liability and the other tax liability to the people, i.e. the GET tax increase. You say that it's going to save you a lot of liability if we take this, or take the sunset out of this. How many incidents have we, in terms of beach, drowning suits, et cetera, that we actually have protected you from? I'm trying to look for some numbers. You make it sound like this is really a great blanket cover that you need, but what are the actual numbers? How many people have sued, and what's the dollar amounts that we actually will keep you guys from incurring? That's the first question.
Okay, Representative Ward, I don't have that right now, but I can get that for you. You know, when we were lobbying to get this beach liability passed to begin with, one of the examples that we used was an incident where someone parked on what was a graveyard site about a mile away from the beach that they were going to, and because it was an old county area and we didn't have the signage that says the ocean a mile down is dangerous. We were actually sued for several $1 million. And we lost the lawsuit on the basis that this person crossed from the parking lot onto the beach, walked down the beach about a mile, got hurt in the surf, and became paraplegic. Those are the kinds of challenges that we had in the past when we did not have liability coverage. So we're not asking for anything more than the state has. You know, the state right now has some protection. If we're careless, if we're negligent, we deserve to be dinged. But for natural causes, things like high surf, there should be some common sense protection for the counties. And I'll get you some numbers. We're going to have to research it and bring it back. But because we've had this protection for a while, there won't be any real current numbers in what we're saving, because those suits don't come up while this beach liability protection has been there for the county.
So they haven't gone away, but there's not that many. I gather that seems to be a trend line. No
more numbers because we protected from liability. We cannot be sued. It's like trying to measure prevention. You cannot measure what never happened.
And they haven't pierced the veil in any of those cases.
I'm just kidding.
No, but from the major lawsuits that we
You got to have signs up, though.
We do have we have been required to put up signs. I think every county has made a concerted effort to put up signage. We've had all the legal challenges that we've had to meet. So a lot of the preventive actions that we were required to do, the counties have gone out of our way, and statewide there was an effort by the different communities working together to create the proper type of signages, international language, different spacing, different heights, a whole lot of considerations. So a lot of those are already in place.
Okay. Now, gentlemen, maybe a bit more of a serious question on the GT tax increase. Given the opportunity to have a 1% increase for all of you, remember, and this is not necessarily for the city and county, but the people of the city and county were told that this is a temporary tax. And now it's permanent and may be expanding. How can we justify this, not only because it's an election year, not only because it's where the economy hasn't turned around, but how can we be talking about a tax increase at this particular juncture when in effect what we had was a city and county temporary tax in Honolulu, and now we're talking about countywide permanent taxation up to 1%. This is quite a shift in policy, or at least a recommendation.
Representative, happy to answer that. What the counties are asking is not the imposition or the raising of the general excise tax. What we're respectfully requesting is the flexibility for the counties to be able to raise the general excise tax up to 1%, and there'd still be a process. The mayors would submit that to our respective county councils. Our respective legislative bodies within the counties would have to approve it and vote for it. Of course, with or without the support and input of the community, we'd be welcoming that input. So we're not asking the state to raise the general excise tax. What the mayors and the counties are doing is asking the state or requesting of the state the opportunity and the flexibility to raise the general excise tax, if need be, to raise additional revenues to meet the challenges that our counties and municipalities face. So we're not asking the legislature to raise that fee. We wouldn't ask that at any time, much less during an election year. All we're asking for is flexibility, opportunity, so in the near future, hopefully we never have to, but if in fact we are confronted with the tremendous economic challenges we recently faced, that we wouldn't have to come to this body, to this legislature and ask for resources and monies, that we would go to our county councils and we would ask for that increase at the county level, and we would be accountable to that request. We would be held accountable for that increase, respectively, to our voters at the county level. And basically, we'd be shielding the state from that request or increase, as you say. So, just for clarification. Is that clear? I apologize if it's not.
Of course, of course.
Okay, I just wanted to share a few numbers with you, specifically for KA Beach. And I did mention earlier between 1970 and 2008, there were 8 drownings, and to date 0. Furthermore, lifeguards had rescued 233 swimmers in distress at KA since 2008. And they have had 84,000 preventive interaction with beachgoers, and we've been documenting that information at this particular site on Kauai at KA.
Thank you. That's very encouraging, actually. Any other comments on the tax increase? Which, by the way, it's not a GET tax increase at the state level. It's just at the county level. So what's the name of it then? Is it a county tax increase?
Well, what we're looking on is to tie it to the GET and have the state collect it. Now, again, what we're looking for is we're looking for dependability in what we're being allowed to budget. That's really what the purpose of this. Now, a couple of years ago, because of the downturn in the economy, the legislature capped the TAT and limited our income levels. And again, you know, you've been around a long time. You know how, I think you could count on one hand the number of years the GET tax, or excuse me, the TAT tax was not brought up for discussion for reduction. So every year we go through this circus about what are we going to do with the TAT tax, and as a mayor, we're looking for some way to stabilize what we can look at as income. Now,
but Mayor, isn't the Constitution as well as the law saying you guys have got all you can do in property tax? You can make property taxes double or triple. We don't have to hear about it. Don't even have to ask for permission, Mother May I, anything. But you're not doing that. You're coming into the state taxation area. Why is property tax not one of the options?
Property tax is one of the options. We raised our property taxes, and you've taken away the TAT tax. You've capped it. So if you left the TAT tax alone, we wouldn't be making this request in all probability. But what we're trying to do is find a way to stabilize the system. Now, again, as was pointed out, the TAT is the second largest income group that we do have. And I think every county has raised property taxes and adjusted property taxes as is. Remember, we're dealing with the same group of people that are, whether they're at the county or state, they're all the same people, no matter what the jurisdiction. We're trying to find a way to stabilize what we can depend on as income.
But you guys give the impression that you take the hit. If you increase the taxes, you guys will take the hit. Not this
with
group.
the GET, if we go to our council and we say, well, you give us the up to 1%, we're going to take the hit. If we do property tax, we take the hit. You know, if you take away our TAT tax, we don't have a recourse. So I'm looking more to try and stabilize our economic system.
Okay.
So if you were to say, leave the TAT and uncap it, and we won't touch it at all, at least we have something we can depend
But
on.
remember, the premise that you're leveraging is, or was, the temporary tax for the rail, which now, if it's permanent, and then you want a 1%, how do you know the 1%? Then we want to raise the ceiling to 2%, and then to 3%. Is it really in a direction we want to go in? That's the basic question.
Well, again, most of the counties, when this came up, we declined it, except for Oahu, because it was strictly for transportation, and we didn't have a real use for it in transportation. We're asking for more a generalized tax that we can use to stabilize our economic system. And that's just the way it is. That's what we're trying to do. So I won't argue that, you know, there are other places that you've taken the funding away. We collect all the fines for traffic fines. It all goes to the state. I mean, there are a lot of areas where we could say, well, we supplement.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. As a fellow mayor, we respectfully thank you, Representative Ward, for your increase. And we understand, would like to reiterate that we're here to work together. We share a same pot of money to serve the same communities. And we look forward to continuing that conversation over the next few months.
Yes. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, okay. Rep. Ward, I did want to emphasize one thing that I think is really important for all of us in the room, is the real property tax is paid for by the residents of each of our counties. On our island, there's about 225,250 homes that pay a real property tax. The GET tax is paid by everyone, including tourists. And for example, for our rail project, of the $3.7 billion we're going to collect, 1/3 of that is paid by guys visiting Waikiki and Ko'olina. So if we can distribute the burden to those who visit our shores, instead of putting all of the burden on the taxpayers that pay real property taxes in GET, I'd prefer to shift some of that burden. And that's why we're looking at GET versus raising the real property tax. But we have made that hard decision and have raised real property taxes.
Would you be willing to make it a temporary 1% GET?
We already have that on Oahu, but if all of us are going to take the political hits, because no one here wants to raise a tax,
Amen.
We elect to do that. We don't want to have to come back and do it every couple of years. That's the reason why.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Chair Luke, did any of the other mayors want to comment on that? No.
Continuing on the discussion of the GET increase, you know, anytime we consider any type of tax increase, it's a serious discussion. And I think, you know, the last time we authorized the increase of GET, we authorized all the counties to raise it by 0.5% for rail for Honolulu and transportation for transportation-related costs for other counties. I think, you know, the people don't look at it as authorizing. You know, if the state authorizes the counties to do it, the people are just going to look at it as the state increased the GET, and it will be up to the counties to either go ahead with it or reject it. So my question is, the last time we went through this discussion, only one county took advantage of it. So don't you think the better approach is, well, before I ask that, you know, one of the things that I noticed is when HSAC came in, this wasn't part of their package. So the question is, are all the county councils in agreement in raising the GET to 1%? And wouldn't it be a better approach for the county council to pass a resolution saying that they are all going to vote for an increase in GET and then come back to the legislature? Because I think the last thing we want to do is go down this road and authorize the county to do perhaps a speculative tax in the future and tie the hands of the state to look at a tax increase on the part of the state.
That's a very fair and important point in consideration, Chairwoman Luke. And the Hawaii Council of Mayors, for the first time, have met on multiple occasions with the representatives from the Hawaii State Association of County and the council representatives. I know there was a spirited debate, both for, against. I know some representatives for respective counties were for it. Some members of different county councils and different counties were against it. I know HSAC did not take a position on the general excise tax with HCOM, but my understanding is they're there at the city and county right now considering and looking towards voting on it. And that's HSAC's position. But you raise a very important point that we should have and pursue, a commitment from the counties. Now, 7, 8 years ago or more, 2005, when it was presented to the counties, specifically for transportation projects. I know on Maui and Kauai and the island of Hawaii that if that was a restriction that was imposed and given that opportunity, we'd certainly take advantage of that, because we recognize that all of our islands are growing and all of our infrastructure needs to catch up. And certainly the counties, we've all raised property taxes in the last few years. And given an opportunity and ability to invest more in our infrastructure, general excise tax, we'd certainly take advantage of that. But I hear your concern that, why should the legislature, go through a very contentious and challenging vote to provide to the counties, only to have the counties subsequently reject that.
So maybe the part of the approach should be if the various mayors could check back with their various council members and see if there could be some type of agreement or a resolution passed by the counties first, and then we will take it up, take a look at whether we want to entertain it. But without that, I think it's still too premature.
It's part of the package. HSAC just voted to vote.
Oh, well, yeah. So a couple of things. We've just received word that HSAC did vote and has made the general excise tax part of the package. But to strengthen our request to the legislature, I'm certain that all of us could go to our respective county councils, ask for a resolution to then, within the next few months, come back to the state legislature. I think it's a fair request, Madam Chair, and something that I'd be more than willing to do because it is a serious request, because it is a revenue-generating request, because there is an impact on our communities, all of our communities. It's a fair request and something that I and my fellow mayors would be more than happy to go and do.
Right. And then I appreciate our discussion about partnership, and I agree that there is a partnership between the counties and the state. The property tax is the kuleana of the counties. The GE tax is, within the kuleana of the state. Right. And, when we give up a portion of the GET, we're actually giving up our ability to increase the tax for a certain amount of time. The reason why the state was not able to raise the GET for a long time because we authorized the city and county of Honolulu to raise the GET for rail purposes. So the question for you folks is this the best way to work on a partnership? Because, for instance, if we authorize the counties to raise the GET to 5%, and we don't really know exactly when you folks are going to raise the GET to 5%, it's going to hamper the state in looking at any type of increase. And I don't think in the meantime, we won't be entertaining an additional 1% because depending on what county you live in, it could be as much as a 2% increase to 6%.
Correct.
So is this, in your opinion, the best way to work on a partnership, or have you thought of alternatives?
Well, we certainly have looked at all of our options. I know in years past, the state legislature has offered the counties a sales tax on tangible personal goods. But there was a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty there. Who would collect it? How much revenue would actually be generated? As was mentioned, we looked at all of the revenue sources and we remain open. We're not standing before this legislative body saying this is what we want and we want it this way for this long at this amount. We're putting it before the legislative body of the state of Hawaii for consideration.
So what are the other alternatives?
Yeah, as revenue generating alternatives.
Yeah, so what are they?
The other options, all we have right now is 3 revenue sources. It's property taxes, transient accommodation tax, which has been capped and was, threatened to be taken away every year from the counties, And the last tool available to the counties is currently being utilized by the city and county for rail. It's the general excise tax. You know, yes, there's fees, and it was mentioned by other mayors. We've raised our vehicle registration fees, driver's license fees. We've raised our mass transit, transportation fees. But you reach a point where, you know, we run out of tools in a toolbox. And we know in years past we haven't asked for a general excise tax increase because of the uncertainty facing the state, and that the state might have to use that 0.5% or 1% to balance the state's budget. So we thought, given the cautious optimism that we currently have because of the, you know, rebounding economy, that now might be that time for the counties to put on the table for consideration, for discussion, a potential general excise income tax ability to the counties to address.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, any further questions? Senator Thielen.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to follow up on Senator Keith-Agarad's questions about the important ag lands, if I could, for Mayor Caldwell. Mayor, I was really happy to hear you say that you support agriculture and feel that it's important for Oahu. I think what a lot of people don't know is when we talk about, you know, Hawaii only grows about, you know, 10 to 15% of our local food, that much of that is grown on Oahu. In fact, the vast majority of it, primarily by two of the largest farmers in Hawaii, farm primarily on Oahu. I guess my question is on the important agricultural lands. A lot of it is not just designating, you know, which lands or areas are the long-term homes for agriculture, but making sure that farmers have affordable leases, you know, and long-term leases on agricultural lands. So my question for you is, you know, is the city and county of Honolulu willing to utilize its clean water and natural lands funds, possibly in a partnership with the state, in taking a look at a very unique opportunity where some of the dole lands are on the market on the North Shore? Because I could foresee that, I mean, those are some of our last remaining open agricultural lands. As you mentioned, a lot of them are fallow, and a very tremendous opportunity to get them into farming because they're on the market, I believe, as a package deal. And is that something that you as the mayor would be interested in and willing to work with the council members to utilize the city clean water and natural lands funds?
We are interested, and as you know, even before I came into office, and maybe you worked on it when you were over at the city, but Galbraith is a good example of the city partnering up with the state and others, Trust for Public Lands, in a partnership that's going to result in a game-changing scenario out in that area, out in the Wahiawa area. I have met with Leah Hong to talk about the dole lands and working with the Trust for Public Lands, and I think it's a source, a revenue source that was created at the legislative level that is the appropriate use. And we have not said no, and we'll be looking for the best way to really use the money to leverage it to make the best use of it. So the short answer is yes, I'm open to doing that. And I think it needs to be done. It's a good way to help people who otherwise could not farm. Okay? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Members, any further questions?
Chair, I have a follow-up.
Representative Ward.
Thank you. Mayors, yesterday we were honored to have a luncheon provided by the county councils. In that was the package delivered with beach liability, et cetera, but there was no GE tax increase mentioned. So was there a meeting between yesterday and today that this happened, or was it something yesterday we missed while we were having the great food that they provided for us?
As you're having this meeting, the HSAC was having a meeting, their executive board. So
watching us on Olelo, they were saying, hey, look, this is where the mayor's going, let's follow them, or?
Well, we knew that they were going to be bringing this up.
Okay.
But they actually took a vote while we were here to include this into their bill.
But that's the executive committee. It's not the council members themselves, right?
Right.
Which is another, 80% of the, 90% of the members probably.
Right.
So I think, as the chair said, it would be good to get their blessing to see what you guys have said, which otherwise the executive leaders have said.
That's why I'm just qualifying that.
Okay, good. So you guys are still on the same sheet of music then? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, any further questions? Representative Yamashita.
Thank you, Chairman. Aloha, Mayors. I'm going to change the tone a little bit and ask you from an offensive perspective. It's always been my belief that part of what we need to do is how government can help spur economic development. There are four ways that we can help. It's workforce, and that's mainly us, K-12, higher education. Infrastructure, that's where you guys come in. You control permitting, different kind of thing. Entrepreneurship, regulatory environments, those kind of things. And then capital formation, tax credits, incentives, those types of things. Last year, and I've asked you this question before, and in a broad sense, you've said you support it. But last year we passed a bill that basically gave a shot clock to broadband infrastructure projects, where it actually will give you a timeline on how fast you have to approve permitting processes for, this is at the state level and at the county level, broadband type infrastructure projects. So broadband, in my opinion, the way it was, is a foundational infrastructure component to support economic development in engineering, science, education, telemedicine, and the list goes on and on. What the bill does is gives you a timeline on how fast you have to approve the permit for those projects. Are you aware of it, number one? And number two, have you looked into how you're going to be able to meet those timelines?
Representative Yamashita, the County of Maui has an internal committee within our administration that is working on trying to speed up the permit process. And we're looking at a lot of the different ways in which to try and incorporate what you're talking about and speed up the timeline. I would very, very much appreciate getting a time certain that that a permit has to be processed to be able to get it through the system at the state level as well as the county level. The only real challenge that we've been finding is that if the applicant does not complete the information sheet, it sometimes goes back and forth, and that would take time. So if the information is filled out according to what the requirements are, we'd be more than happy to support what you're talking about.
Before you continue, what the bill does is it takes effect January 1st of this year, so it started. You have 90 days to complete the application. After, I forgot how many, there's so many days that you have to get back to the applicant and tell them what the shortfalls are, what they're missing in their application, so that you can address those types of things. I think we had a good discussion last year as far as what is needed and what is to move forward. But there is a time certain to this legislation.
And we're very supportive of anything time certain, with that caveat that this back and forth. If we don't get good information, then it takes a little bit more time. If we get good information, then it could be speeded up.
I want to thank you, Representative Yamashita, because that's critically important, and you're right that broadband infrastructure is the foundation and backbone of our economic development. When we look at renewable energy or science and technology or higher education or incentivizing investment for new businesses to create new employment opportunities, broadband infrastructure is critical. When we look at competing with other jurisdictions, people want to know what kind of broadband infrastructure you have. So that bill, number one, the basis for it as a foundation for future economic development is a great bill. Number two, the counties welcome state timelines. We have to expedite our regulatory response. I always tell people, the people who come in and want to invest, the investors need two things. If we want to create job creation, we got to give people two things. They need predictability and certainty. And that can only come with very specific timelines and very specific periods for which we should and can respond to requests for permits, for regulatory responses. So we welcome the legislation. We're hoping that it'll incentivize people to want to come in and invest in broadband infrastructure and other infrastructure improvements to create jobs and to spur the economy and create a thriving, vibrant economy. So anytime that we can work together to set those strict timelines, to encourage the counties to make sure that our agencies, our departments are timely and responsively following up with the business community, with employment opportunities, then we welcome that. So thank you for the legislation. We'll be sure to follow up and look forward to other opportunities like that to create jobs and employment in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the mayors? If not, members, any further questions? Seeing none, I did want to thank all of the mayors for coming over. And thank you. We do view this as a partnership, as well stated by Mayor Kinoy. Your constituents are our constituents, and we need to work together to provide them the infrastructure and quality of life that we all desire. So thank you again for coming. Members, there being no further business, this hearing is adjourned.